There's a force that doesn't shout, but silences entire rooms. A presence that doesn't impose through words, but by the weight of its gaze. This force is born from within, and many have traded it away for comfort. The inner samurai, who once guided life with precision, discipline, and purpose, has been lulled to sleep by modern distractions. And in a world accustomed to fragile minds, anyone who dares to think clearly and act coldly will be feared. The one who awakens this force inside will be seen as a threat. Not because they hurt others, but because, by contrast, they expose their weakness. Miyamoto Musashi wrote in the Dakota, "Do not seek pleasure for its own sake." He wasn't talking about physical pleasure, but mental, the addiction to comfort, validation, and emotional safety. A man who trains his mind like a sharpened blade becomes a presence that disturbs. He doesn't attack, but his stability irritates the insecure. His calm is mistaken for coldness. His clarity for arrogance, his solitude for pride. But behind that distorted image lies a truth. He is at peace. And in a chaotic world, peace is dangerous. This video is a path, a verbal blade, a mirror, so you can see where your mind still hesitates, where the samurai in you still sleeps. We'll uncover the invisible chains that keep you domesticated, the emotional patterns that make your mind predictable, and how to reverse them. Because building a mind so strong it scares others is not about showing force. It's about eliminating everything that keeps you weak. Weakness doesn't begin in the body. It is born in the mind. A man who does not master his own thoughts has already lost the war before ever wielding a sword. In the era of the samurai, the most feared battle was the inner one. Mental chaos, doubt, the paralyzing fear. Today, it lives on in subtler form. Those who wake up needing the world's permission to exist have already knelt before an invisible enemy. A fragile mind doesn't bleed. It quits. And that surrender happens in silence, when a man chooses not to try, not to fight, not to change. Musashi said, "The true warrior wins without needing to fight." This silent victory is not over others, but over your own instinctual impulses. The undisciplined mind is reactive, emotional, weak, and that weakness disguises itself as justification, cloaks itself in pride, and hides behind excuses. Deep down, it trembles at the responsibility of living with presence. The average man cannot carry the weight of his own existence, so he outsources guilt, choice, even his own pain. The first step in awakening the samurai is admitting that your mind is leaking. Thoughts you inherited without question. Beliefs that make you see like a good man, but keep you small. Emotions that rule over you more than reason ever did. The weak mind has too many voices and not enough silence. It fears pain, but it fears transformation even more. That's why it avoids discomfort. Not because it's painful, but because it reveals there's work to do. Healing begins with one simple decision: to sustain discomfort, to sit with yourself and stare inward as you would an armed opponent, to observe your thoughts without seeking immediate relief. Musashi trained for hours in silence, not to fight better, but to think less and see more. The samurai who awakens today is the one who chooses to silence his inner world before trying to conquer the outer one. Because the mind that does not collapse has already won. You don't need to raise your voice to be respected. You only need to carry a rare frequency. Discipline. It doesn't shine, doesn't show off, doesn't seek attention, but it imposes silence on any room. People feel it when someone moves with precision. They feel it in the steadiness of a gesture, the control in breath, the command in the eyes. Discipline is a sword no one sees, but everyone senses. And that's why it's intimidating, because it reveals a power that doesn't depend on applause. Musashi wrote, "Only a prepared warrior can face any path." That preparation is lonely, repetitive, often thankless. But in that invisible effort, the relentless mind is built. Discipline is not rigidity. It's an unshakable commitment to what matters. The undisciplined seek motivation. The samurai seeks direction. The undisciplined move by emotion. The samurai by decision. The difference lies not in grand words, but in the silence of small choices. Today, being disciplined makes you abnormal. While most chase instant gratification, you become dangerous by being consistent, by having a ritual, by waking before sunrise, by training when no one is watching, by keeping your word when no one demands it. This isn't about military rigidity. It's about internal loyalty. The samurai doesn't wait for the world to discipline him. He molds himself the way a blacksmith shapes steel. And because of that, when he walks in, the room changes. Not out of fear, but respect. To discipline yourself is to sculpt your soul through action. It is to say, what I feel doesn't matter. What I choose does. The world will test you with distractions, cravings, fears, but you already decided beforehand. Each small act repeats that decision. Each morning lived with intention sharpens the blade of your mind. And like Musashi, you will one day realize you no longer need to fight. Your mere presence will carry the authority of one who masters himself. True power doesn't scream, it breathes. The most dangerous men are not those who react, explain, or justify. They observe. They weigh every second before they move. And when they act, the world knows it wasn't impulse, it was choice. That's the silence that intimidates. Not the silence of someone without a voice, but of someone who's mastered his inner storm. A mind that chooses silence is sharper than any sword wielded in desperation. Musashi lived more in silence than in combat. He wrote, "Understand that there is something invisible beyond the sword. That invisibility is inner mastery. A warrior who reacts to everything is still a slave to the external world. But the one who silences, who contains, who observes, is free. Inner silence is the art of not being hijacked by thoughts or emotions. It is to endure chaos without becoming part of it, to move only when necessary, and never to prove something to anyone. Today, the world rewards those who speak loudly, but the samurai does not compete for attention. He withdraws to find himself. His silence is not absence. It is condensed presence. He meditates while walking, thinks while sharpening his sword, understands more by listening than by speaking. The modern mind, noisy and anxious, fears this kind of man because it does not know how to control him. He doesn't respond to emotional manipulation. He doesn't need to win arguments. He has already won the only one that matters, over himself. Cultivating the silence is daily training. It's not about staying quiet. It's about not being ruled, about not offering explanations no one asked for, about not trying to convince those who refuse to understand. The sharpened mind moves in the invisible realm, where words are sacred and time is respected. He who masters silence masters rhythm, and he who masters rhythm controls the dance without needing to dance. Every disciplined man will eventually be accused of arrogance, not because he disrespects, but because his presence disturbs those who are easily shaken. In a world where being weak is normal and emotions rule, anyone who moves with certainty becomes a threat. Your inner peace, your clarity of speech, your refusal to react, all of this is misread by fragile minds as pride. But in truth, it is only the reflection of someone who has already paid the price to be free. Musashi warned, "Do not hold on to possessions you no longer need." And that includes a need for acceptance. The samurai mind doesn't seek validation. It seeks truth. And that pursuit, radical and silent, makes others uncomfortable because they see in you what they haven't built in themselves. They feel judged not by your words, but by your silence. They call it arrogance, when in fact it's just presence. And that's precisely what they lost long ago. You cannot train your mind to be unbreakable and still expect the world to welcome you with open arms. Discipline will isolate you. Clarity will make you lonely. Inner peace will remove you from circles that live on complaint. But that's the path. The samurai was never popular. He was respected from a distance, often misunderstood, but never mistaken. He doesn't shout, but his silence echoes longer than the loudest scream. Train your mind to remain calm even when wrongly accused. To not explain yourself to people who don't listen. To stay on your path even if they mock it. Because if they fear your peace, it means your presence is real. And a man who owns himself doesn't ask for permission. He moves, he builds, he sharpens. And in doing so, he writes his legacy in silence. There's a pain that doesn't bleed, but it makes you slow, doubtful, fragile. This pain is called emotional repetition. It's when past wounds become current limits. It's when what you didn't resolve becomes who you are. Many men walk around not with sword in hand, but with scars that control their steps. They speak, decide, and dream from a place of old pain. And because of that, they never truly arrive, they just survive. Musashi declared, "The way is in training." And that includes emotional training. The modern samurai knows that a scar is not shameful unless it still bleeds. What you don't confront, you repeat. What you don't understand, you react to. And what you don't transform, you carry until it becomes too heavy to move forward. Weak minds are not born. They are made by the accumulation of unresolved pain. There's no glory in being hardened by life. The disciplined mind is not cold. It's precise. He who heals leads. He who understands his wounds gains control over his reactions. Pain can either build your edge or dull your blade. The samurai chooses to look pain in the eye, not to suffer again, but to study it. Every emotion is information, and to lead oneself is to listen to what hurts without becoming a slave to it. Transformation begins when you stop explaining your trauma and start using it as raw material. Forge it, burn it, fold it into strength. The samurai's mind doesn't deny the past. He rewrites it through presence. Because no enemy is stronger than the man who has looked into his own abyss and came back wiser. The greatest difference between a warrior and a common man is simple. One reacts, the other responds. Reaction is impulse, emotion, noise. Response is strategy, silence, precision. The weak mind lives in reaction. It gets offended, justifies, complains. The strong mind observes, calculates, moves. One is predictable. The other is lethal, not because it attacks, but because it chooses exactly when and how to move. Musashi taught, "Do nothing which is of no use." This applies not only to action, but to thoughts, emotions, and words. The samurai does not waste his mind on things he cannot control. He does not waste words on people who do not listen. He does not waste energy on scenarios that do not deserve his presence, because his mind is a blade, and a blade dulls when used for the wrong targets. To stop reacting is not to be passive. It is to be dominant over time, over emotion, over internal noise. It is to act only when the time is right and with full commitment. The samurai mind moves like a predator, silent, aware, decisive. And when it moves, it changes everything. Because it wasn't emotion that moved it, it was strategy. You must train yourself to pause before every answer, to breathe before every decision, to step back when emotion demands action. Because a man who doesn't react is a man who cannot be controlled. And that, in today's world, is the greatest danger. The blade does not rust because it is weak. It rusts because it was not used. The same goes for your mind. Comfort, when sustained for too long, becomes a slow death. It makes you soft, slow, indecisive. The samurai knew that the path of least resistance was the path of greatest danger. That's why they trained daily, not for war, but to keep the edge alive. A blade in use is a blade lost. Musashi warned, "Respect Buddha and the gods without counting on their help." This is the heart of warrior psychology, self-responsibility. The modern man often seeks outside what he refuses to build inside. He waits for motivation, prays for signs, wishes for change, but doesn't act. And so his strength fades. Because strength is like flame, it dies in stillness. It only grows with movement, heat, and pressure. Comfort is not evil, but it is a test, a dangerous one, because it doesn't scream. It whispers, "Rest a bit more, try tomorrow, don't push today." And soon that voice becomes law. The samurai mind learns to detect that voice and respond with action. Not reaction, not rebellion, but consistent, deliberate movement against the softening of the will. To stay sharp is to train when no one demands it. To wait when no one is watching. To rise when comfort offers another hour. That's where the inner samurai lives. Not in glory, but in the invisible battle between who you are and who you could be if you didn't give in. There's a voice inside every man that says, "I can't." It's the voice of the wounded child, of the forgotten dreamer, of the one who once failed and decided never to try again. That voice speaks softly, but it commands strongly. It justifies weakness, delays growth, and calls self-pity spirituality. The samurai mind has only one response to this voice: silence it, without negotiation, without excuse. Musashi would say, you can only fight the way you practice. And if your practice is to listen to fear, then your fight is already lost. The warrior trains his mind not to feel invincible, but to become untouchable by self-deception. He doesn't deny pain, but he never lets pain define him. He knows the voice that says, I am a victim, may feel real, but it is a lie inherited from culture, family, and trauma. The victim mind always has a story, a reason why it didn't work, why it wasn't fair, why life owes something. The warrior mind has no story. It has decisions. It moves with scars, but without excuses. It speaks little, but its presence explains everything. It doesn't justify, it transforms. Because in the silence of the mind, the old self is either buried or reborn. You must kill the part of you that waits for someone to come and fix your life. No one is coming. The samurai walks alone, not because he wants to, but because the path is narrow and the crowd does not follow discipline. Let your results speak. Let your silence provoke. Let your strength offend. The victim will be forgotten, but the warrior, he will be remembered. In every room, there's a man who speaks the most, and another who says almost nothing. The world often praises a loud one, but true warriors know strength is quiet, power is still, presence is invisible until it is needed. The samurai never brags, never explains, never demands. His discipline speaks. His eyes reveal what his mouth never says, and that's why he is feared. Musashi taught, appear weak when you are strong and strong when you are weak. This paradox is the essence of the way. To remain unseen until action is required. To blend into the silence until your sword draws. The disciplined mind does not need applause, validation, or titles. He knows who he is, and that alone separates him from the masses who are addicted to attention. The man who must prove his strength is still weak, because true power is self-contained. It doesn't seek, it waits. It doesn't explode, it pierces. The warrior mind can endure insult, provocation, even humiliation, not because it is passive, but because it has chosen where to place its energy. His reaction is never free. It is calculated, reserved for only that which truly matters. Learn to walk into a room without the need to be seen. Let your presence be the echo of your silence. Let your life be proof that you are strong, not your voice, your opinions, or your demands. Because when the storm comes, only one man will remain standing, the one who needed nothing but himself. There comes a moment in every warrior's journey when he realizes he is not like the others. He sees too clearly. He feels too little. He expects almost nothing. The world begins to feel distant, as if he walks in a different rhythm. That is the price of clarity. When you master your mind, you no longer react to the illusions that enslave others. You see through manipulation, temptation, and noise, and that makes you unrecognizable. Musashi said, the truth is not what you want it to be. It is what it is. And once you accept this, you begin to detach, not out of coldness, but out of precision. The samurai doesn't fight every battle. He doesn't chase every desire. He doesn't belong to the system. He belongs to the way. That way demands loneliness, but rewards with peace. It strips away comfort, but grants presence. It separates, but it elevates. When your mind is no longer reactive, when your energy is no longer wasted, when your decisions are no longer emotional, you become dangerous, not to others, to the system, because they can't sell you fear. They can't control your attention. They can't manipulate your desire. You are out of reach. And men like that, they either become leaders or targets. Do not fear this transformation. Embrace the isolation that comes with awakening. Honor the silence that now surrounds your presence. Because when a man no longer belongs to the world, it's because he has found a place that truly matters within himself. You were not born to fit in. You were born to forge something unbreakable. A mind so clear that no lie enters. A soul so centered that no chaos shakes it. Musashi didn't write to impress. He wrote to awaken. His path was one of solitude, intensity, and mastery. And now his legacy becomes yours. If the world calls your discipline madness, smile. If they fear your silence, keep walking. If they mock your presence, sharpen your focus. Because when you become the warrior no one understands, you become a man no one can break. The inner samurai is not a fantasy. It is a decision, and you just made it.